Cost savings are the ultimate goal of any spend management solution. But cost savings can come in a whole variety of places within the source to settle process within a category. So most people think of the sourcing part of the process as driving a lot of the savings, and that's true. In other words, using good bidding practices to source a venue or an AV supplier and getting several bids, making it a competitive event, making your specs biddable and understandable by the suppliers. There's no question that drives a lot of savings. But a lot of savings in meetings and events also come farther down the line in the source to settle process. The more a spend category has high transactional costs, the more it can generate savings in the rest of the process as well. So meetings and events have lots of small transactions between lots of vendors, and the actual cost of processing that transaction, whether it's the PO on the buyer side or the invoice on the supplier side or the payment and the remittance on both sides, those transactions are often as much to handle as the dollar amount on the transaction itself. And so a great spend management solution doesn't look just at one area, it looks at that entire process and thinks about how can we take costs out of that entire process for both the buyer and the supplier. A lot of systems try to end up shifting costs between the buyer and the supplier. So they'll tell a great story to the buyer about how much they're going to save, but they manage to do that by shifting the costs onto the supplier. That's not a real solution because everybody knows that the supplier is going to figure out some way to pass those costs back onto the buyer, or they're going to go out of business. The great solutions, and Evan is one of these, look at the entire process and think about it from both parties' perspectives and pull those costs out rather than shifting them from one place to another. Let's give an example. The P card or the meeting card is a really useful tool for some types of transactions, but it does have this cost shifting element to it, which is it's quite attractive to the buyer, but it can be very unattractive to the supplier. Whereas the Eved Pay system tries to balance those two needs and be attractive to both parties.